may have seen the news, and yes, there is a brand new SMME fund. It is called Kisbi, and the man who's behind it all is my good friend Mark Barnes. You might remember him. He used to head up the post office. Prior to that, an investment banker, and now he is taking on a different turn in his life. He's using the knowledge that he's had over the years, understanding the markets, understanding capital raising, to set up a new impact fund that's aimed at you, the entrepreneur. He joins me now on the line to tell us a bit more. Mr. Barnes, are you well, sir?
Andila, it's in my nature to be well, man.
I like it. I like it. Now, let's talk Kisbi. Before we talk Kisbi, why are you involved in this? I mean, I've known you for a few years now. I think South Africa knows you certainly when you were post office CEO and trying to chart a new frame of mind and new thinking about what we could do with our post office. And, you know, you're an accomplished former banker and entrepreneur since then. Why are you doing this?
You know, Andila, it's actually what I have been wanting to do for the last 10 years. And let me even tell you, I went to the post office not just to deliver mail, but to use that extraordinary footprint and reach and the banking license to try and get the formal economy to interact with the informal economy. So my move there was driven by what I regard as, in its various different guises, the biggest challenge facing South Africa, which is economic inequality. And more importantly, the absence of the prospect of economic dignity for the majority of our people. If we don't solve that, there'll be nothing left to fight about in Dile. Okay. And so we've got to stop investing money in big buildings in Sandton and start investing money in small businesses in Alexandra. I think that it's not just about money. It is about the price of money.
Okay.
But it is about thinking differently of the environment within which these young businesses have to fight through to become part of the formal economy.
So what's the different thinking? Everybody's asking themselves. I mean, they've seen many third-party funds before. Some are doing okay, but banks, as we all know, are doing their best, but they've got their own limitations and regulation. What makes Kisbi so different?
Just first of all, if you look at the composition of the capital that we offer. So we, in a mix of about 80% debt, 20% convertible equity, and I don't want to get too technical on the show, but essentially, we've got two kinds of capital. And overall on the fund, we're hoping that mix will end up 20% of the equity type funding, 80% of the debt type funding. But on an individual case, we've got the flexibility to do this. If you find a fast growing, cash absorbing business, to burden that with further debt that's got fixed repayment terms actually kills it, doesn't enable it. So in that case, we do more of the CPI lending, where the in rate for the SME is 7%. It's like CPI plus 2.5% orders of magnitude. Okay, that is a different rate completely to what you can go and get money out. But for that, to compensate us, we want to be able to convert some of that funding into shares in that company because it's going to be fast growing. It can't afford to fund the debt, but given enough capital, it'll grow like hell, and we want to be part of that. Now, you know, that's not a deal which is available around town, okay? The problem with debt providers, as I said to someone else, they never come to the party, okay? So if you're a debt provider, you either don't get your money back or you get it back and the person you lent it to goes on to make a fortune. You're never there for dinner. You just pay for the food, okay? And so we're saying, you know, if we're going to be there for the dinner, we're happy to become far more of a partner than just debt money. And that's what we need. That's the first point. So the second point is this. The street money, okay, is debt. The money you can get out on the street is debt. Now that debt has got such bad debt experience, sector by sector, company by company, that it has to overcharge and keep compensating for the losses that it's made because it's never enjoyed the upside of the successes. Okay, so that cost of money is like 40% plus. No business can afford to grow with a 40% burden. There are no assets that generate that kind of return. So we can't fund SMEs on that basis. And the last point, if you'll allow it to me, is this. You know, Kisbi is looking to create what we call an SME marketplace. So we'll say to our investee companies, to our SMEs, if I could call them that for a while, we'll say, Let's talk about buying things from one another on an e-commerce app, which we will provide. Let's talk about shared legal services costs. Let's talk about shared purchasing contracts, so that if everyone's got to buy staples, let's buy them together. And so we can get the wholesale price, okay? And so you start putting together a community, which for central services and business, functionality services, it can start paying big business price for those kinds of things. And the biggest last point I'll make is that for the poorest in our country and for the smallest companies in our country, they pay the highest cost per unit of consumption. And so, it's the poor person who pays much more for a minute of airtime or an apple or a cigarette than those who can afford to buy a carton or enter into a 3-year contract or whatever. And so if we put that stuff together in a community, we start creating what I would call a completely new asset class, a completely new sub-economic lifestyle.
Makes a lot of sense. And I like the fact that obviously it's holistic, and I guess that makes sense for all of us being involved in it. Question I have about COVID-19. Now, I've personally been disappointed that a lot of the funding that's out there is all about, paying for the past 3 months. I don't know a single entrepreneur, Mark, who's worried about the fact that, there's a landlord who didn't get their rent. They're worried about the landlord kicking them out, but they're not worried about the landlord getting paid. Or an entrepreneur who's worried that their lights bill didn't get paid. They're worried they may lose the lights, but they're not worried about the municipality getting paid. What they're more worried about is the business going forward. Am I going to be able to continue hiring people? Do I even have a business in this whole quote-unquote new normal? How does Kisbee see its role in the environment we find ourselves in, where we've got this pandemic and we can't ignore it?
Okay, so we've already been approached by businesses that are stable but for COVID, where their client base has disappeared. And they're established businesses with 3 or 4 year track records. Those are exactly in our focal point, because we can see a good business model. They need some term funding, and they need capital, which is partnership capital, not extract capital. So we need to go to them and say, okay, guys, you need another 6 months of this. We're going to charge you 7% on the money for the next 6 months. And then we're going to ramp it up and get a piece of this equity. And as you say, we're not helping them to pay the bills. We're helping them to keep a bigger piece of their company than zero, which is the alternative available to them. And we're surrounding them with all of these other SME marketplace services. But one of the big consequences of what we do, much more so at this level in the economy than in the formal top of the pyramid, is we retaining jobs, okay, or creating jobs. And I must tell you that it's not just that you go to zero. An employed person is an asset to the economy. They spend money, they support people, they pay school fees, all those, they pay tax.
Yep.
An unemployed person is a liability to the country. We have to support them and pay social grants. All of those things come out of an ever-diminishing tax pool. So if you solve one employee, you create an asset, not out of zero, but out of what was a liability, or obviously the corollary is true. If someone loses their job, they move from the asset side of the country's balance sheet to the liability side. To the extent that we can save those, to the extent that these SMEs start paying tax in the formal economy because they can get capital at the formal economy price, we create a whole new ecosystem. Now, I can tell you, we haven't even formally launched this thing. We've had one investor presentation, and we're inundated with sensible requests, or people saying, finally, it looks like this mixture works.
All right, man, let's leave it there. By the way, guys, the Kisbee Fund is not yet gone live. They're still busy putting the matter together. But if you want more information, check them out, Kisbee Fund online. They've set up the website with all the information that you might need. The entire process will be digital, so you'll be able to apply online and get the feedback that you want. There's also support that we're working to be a part of. And I keep saying we because I serve in the investment committee with this man on the fund. It certainly attracted me, and I think it's going to be very useful for the economy. Mark, thank you so much for your time, my brother. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Thanks for your interest. Let's do it.
Okay, my man.